Hi, y'all. Welcome to our Collegiate Recovery Leadership Academy first webinar of the series. My name is Sydney Chaifetz. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Assistant Director of Student Development Programs within Safe Campuses. So a little bit before we jump in with Rosie, what is Safe Project? Safe Project is a national nonprofit. We got started in late 2017 with a goal of stopping the addiction fatality epidemic and saving a life every day. So we do that through 4 distinct initiatives: safe communities, safe workplaces, safe veterans, and tonight we're here on behalf of Safe Campuses. So just a little bit about Safe Campuses. We've got a wide variety of programs. Within my role as the Assistant Director of Student Development Programs, I coordinate our National Internship Program and our Collegiate Recovery Leadership Academy. So many of y'all here tonight are here on behalf of the CRLA. For those of you who are students outside of the CRLA or staff, the Collegiate Recovery Leadership Academy is an academic year-long fellowship opportunity for both undergraduate and graduate students, folks that identify as in recovery and also recovery allies. We provide students with training and support and funding to create a collegiate recovery focused impact project on their campus. And as part of the training that we provide, we have created a 6-part webinar series. So y'all are here with us tonight for webinar 1 of 6. Tonight we're going to hear about imposter syndrome and silencing your inner critic, but I really encourage you to check out the 5 additional webinars that we have coming up this semester. If you click back into Eventbrite, you'll see the 5 remaining webinars that you can sign up for tonight and learn more with us. So with that, I'm gonna tell us a little bit about Rosie. And those of you in the CRLA will remember Rosie from her time with us at the Leadership Summit in DC, and she is back by extremely popular demand. So Rosie is an artist, she's an author and illustrator, and she's a leadership development trainer who creates spaces for people to speak unspoken truths and to love their mess. For the past several years, Rosie has worked with leaders in the recovery movement to share their brave stories of leadership, to combat stigma, and to change policies and save lives and also improve care. Rosie holds a master's degree in public policy from the Harvard Kennedy School with a certificate in management, leadership, and decision science. So with that, before I pass it over to Rosie, please continue to use the chat feature to introduce yourselves, to welcome Rosie, get to know each other, and then please, there'll be opportunities throughout the webinar to ask questions. So feel free to use the Q&A feature and plop in any questions that you might have. With that, please join me in welcoming Rosie Greenberg.
Thank you so much, Sydney. It is wonderful to be with you all again. For those of you who are returning, who I saw in November, that was a wonderful, wonderful time and space that we created together. And to those of you who are new, welcome. I'm so thrilled to meet you through the webinar e-waves here. So we're going to be talking about imposter syndrome and silencing your inner critic tonight. And maybe silencing is actually a little bit harsh, because what we're actually going to be doing is transforming our relationship with it. We're going to be understanding it a little bit more so that we can have it almost as an inner ally rather than an inner critic. So I'm going to share a lot about my own journey, and I'll share a little bit more about kind of my background story on all of this in just a moment. But what we're going to do today is we'll do about 40 minutes of content that I'll be sharing. There'll be a little bit of an interactive exercise that you can do if you'd like to. And then we'll have some Q&A and just some time for discussion. And that might be time to ask a logistical question or a question about something your critic is doing to you these days. So feel free to put your question in the Q&A little chat box at the bottom as we go, as Sydney said. So first of all, I want to share that, there we go. All of this is about leadership. And my definition of leadership, which you may have seen before, is from Marshall Gans, a mentor of mine. And he says, leadership is about accepting responsibility for enabling others to achieve shared purpose in the face of uncertainty. Accepting responsibility. That's about who am I? It's about a choice to step into leadership, about really taking on the value of why do I want to step into this in the first place? Notice it's not a role, it's not a position. So it's not saying you have to be the direct manager or a senior vice president to lead. It's just about the choice to choose leadership. And we all know people in positions of authority who aren't great leaders, but we all know people, maybe it's the person with the least power in the room says the thing that everybody's been thinking and it transforms the meeting or the space, right? So it's about accepting responsibility. But then it's not just for yourself, and it's not just about kind of being the one out front telling everyone what to do. It's about enabling others to achieve shared purpose and enabling others, like really supporting other people where they're at and how they can shine, helping so many people shine their own lights. That takes a lot of self-confidence, both in the first place to know why you're stepping up, but also to say, like, I'm okay if other people shine. Sometimes when we have that imposter syndrome, it can be scary for us when other people shine because we worry they might get brighter than us. But if we're really kind of sitting with ourselves and we're okay with ourselves, we can do this work of enabling others. And then in the face of uncertainty, we're facing so much uncertainty these days. So many big systemic ways, like how are we going to face climate crisis? How are we going to respond to the opioid epidemic and really create systems of real generous care? Those are like big systemic pieces. And then there's like interpersonal moments of uncertainty, like, is this relationship going to last? Or where do I want to live? Or what classes do I want to take? So there's uncertainty on so many levels. And that is where the critic loves to tell us we're doing the wrong thing. We don't know what we're doing. We should have decided, we should this, and this. So there's so many shoulds in that space of uncertainty that that the critic can get us into, but also uncertainty is the domain of leadership. And that's where we need people more and more these days, not to tell us what to do, but to help us be okay in the uncertainty. So tonight is all about, like, how do we be okay enough with the uncertainty? So I'll share a little bit about kind of how I came to this. I'm going to share a story, and then I'll share another story that some of you have seen before, a piece of art that I've done. But I want to share, I teach a form of narrative that is about sharing our life stories. And so often we step into leadership and we say, hi, I'm Rosi. My background is in education and humanitarian aid. I've spent several years teaching. I worked in Jordan with the Syria humanitarian crisis that's happening there. And then I went to Harvard, where I studied and got a degree in public policy management, leadership, and decision sciences. And we kind of like, and now I've been 6 years teaching this leadership content and developing leaders across the world. And that can be really impressive, but it doesn't share kind of why I'm doing this work and where I come from. So I want to share an early story with you. I'm the oldest daughter of a single mother who's a rabbi. And she had five of us kids by choice, being a single mom. And throughout my life, I felt like that meant that I had to be perfect. So I remember one day, 7 years old, and I'm sharing this all to kind of help you understand, like, where does this come from? But also the fact of sharing it is a really interesting way to develop leadership and to share leadership. So I'm 7 years old, sitting at the hair cuttery, and the hair cutter has a piece of hair out, and she's like, "Are you sure you want me to cut this all off?" And I'm like, no, I definitely don't want her to cut it all off. But my family has lice. And I look over my shoulder in the mirror at my mom and my younger siblings, and I know that if I tell her why we're really there, she'll kick us out. And my mom will miss another day of work, we'll miss another day of school, and we can't afford that. So I say, "Yes, please cut my hair off." And as she cuts each piece of hair that falls to the ground, it's this sense of like my truth getting buried deeper and deeper in my life. And this sense that I have to kind of be what my mom expects me to be. And that carried through for many years. But she also gave me the sense that my art could really make a difference. There was one year we would walk to school. I was 8, and there was dog poop all over the sidewalk on the way to school. And I was like, why would people let their dogs go here? This is like not okay. And she was like, why don't you do something about it? So she handed me these index cards and popsicle sticks and some crayons, and I made these little signs like "curb your dog." And with all of these signs, I put them out there, and it was this sense, over the next couple of days, the dog poop started disappearing. And I got this sense that my art can actually make a difference. Over the years, I started offering that sense of art and really kind of standing up in the world to other people and creating community around what we want to have happen in the space. And it's only been recently, through looking at my own inner critic, through looking at teaching narrative, that I've started really sharing what's my story, not my mom's. And what do I want to teach? What's my truth? And sharing that. So today we're going to be thinking back to moments in our life where that kind of critic got created. That sense of, I better not share my truth. I better stay quiet here. The hair cuttery was one moment for me. But also moments where you did find your truth and were able to speak up and find your own magic. Now, I share those stories because so often in leadership, we think that it's impressive to just share our resumes. But by sharing some of the early hurts and the early hopes, or some of our current hurts and hopes, my hope is that through vulnerability and through offering our hearts to one another in a little bit of a deeper way, we can begin to transform what it means to be a leader in this world, what it means to impress people, or to kind of stand in our own truth. And so by sharing those moments of hurt and hope, my question is, what if it's okay to be the things that the critic tells us not to be? What if it's okay, actually, to be whatever our critics and imposter syndrome is telling us it's not okay to be? So I'm going to share an art piece that is a story that some of you will have seen before. And for anyone who's new, this is a kind of documentation of the inner critic, kind of an experience of discovering it. And in many workshops, I invite people to draw their inner critic afterwards. We won't do that today, but I'll share some drawings that others have made. So you'll get a sense of kind of the vast way that imposter syndrome and the inner critic, the sense of I'm not good enough, can show up. So here we go. This is called Everyone Has a Sam. Good morning. This is me and this is Sam. Sam says this is a bad drawing of me. Sam is my inner critic. Sam and I are going to write a book together. Sam and I do everything together. But Sam can be really mean sometimes. He says, your hair's too long, your hair's too short. Figure out what you want to do with your life. Now, you're not being creative enough. Use this time well. I'm eating lunch. He says, you're eating too many calories. You should stop eating bread. You should make your own mayonnaise. I'm biking. And he says, you should have gone left back there. You're late. You're always late for friends. This bike drawing is terrible. And you look like you're wearing a leotard. You never wear leotards. No one should publish this. And then he says, you got this all wrong. This isn't even what I say. In some ways, Sam is my oldest companion. Other people come and go, but Sam is always there. I wish he wasn't. Sam went to inner critic school. Sam says the desks were all symmetrical and all the same height, and I'm bad at drawing desks anyways. The inner critics get taught by all the best teachers. Capitalism, white supremacy, patriarchy, homophobia, intergenerational trauma. Sam was first in his class. He says, you drew my hand weird. At any given time, Sam takes up approximately 95% of my brain space. The rest of my life has to fit in here. Planning the future, budgeting, cleaning the kitchen. Feels pretty crowded in there sometimes. But at least Sam has space to relax. Just kidding, Sam never relaxes. I've tried various things to get rid of Sam, like overachieving, meditating, eating ice cream, taking antidepressants, building walls, pleading, crying, begging, shouting, praying. But Sam will not go away. Sam's been with me almost my whole life. I met him in kindergarten after I spoke at Show and Tell one day. I said, I went to Bill Clinton's inauguration with my uncles. And my teacher said, Rosie, it's the inauguration, not the auguration. Now sit down. You're wrong, 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 wrong. My teacher yelled a lot. Kindergarten was very scary. I would hide in the bathroom because it felt safe in there. That's where Sam found me. That was the day Sam graduated from Critic school and was sent to find his human. He was so critical, he looked at 4,324,905 people before choosing me. And he came from a strong line of critics who worked for people you've never even heard of. That's how good they were. Sam apprenticed with my mom and my grandma's critics. And lucky us, their judgments were carefully honed by their parents and their parents' parents' critics. That's how it works. So Sam learned the instructions for life. Last year, Sam was so loud and doing his job so well, he was all I could see. And he started getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I started getting smaller and smaller and smaller until there was almost no me left. I could barely breathe. It was very dark in there. In that place, I couldn't feel anything. In that place, not even ice cream didn't taste good. For months, it felt like it was just me and my journal and my pens. Then one day, in the midst of my darkness, a friend asked me to draw Sam. Drawing him, it turned out that my journal and my pens were exactly all I needed. See, drawing him had never occurred to me. But once he was on paper, he wasn't so scary. He was basically just a squiggle, and I happen to love squiggles. And I said, Dear Sam, I want you to be able to relax on that beach and not worry about me so much. What would you need in order to retire? He said, I can't relax on that beach because if I do, everything could fall apart. Fall apart. Falling apart would be terrible. People might hate you. You'll have no money. You won't get to have a family. You'll be alone forever. You'll be stuck forever. And it turned out Sam was actually just really scared. It turned out he thought he'd been protecting me the whole time, that if he kept me perfect, no one would hurt me. Yes, thank you, Sam. But Sam, I basically did fall apart this year. I felt small and disconnected and imperfect, and guess what? I survived. In fact, it takes a very strong person to be okay falling apart. So you can let go now because I can survive anything, even falling apart. In fact, falling apart is a part of life. And sometimes you have to fall apart to get back up again. The end. Or maybe just the beginning. So let's take a moment, and we're not going to have you draw your Sams here, but in the chat, maybe if you're seeing this for the first time, what resonates with you? And if you're seeing this again, what stands out now about this? See when that's saying powerful. Katie sharing, that was absolutely beautiful. Thank you. Thanks, Katie and Lynette. What stood out to you or what resonates? Yeah, putting it on paper. Sam as a representation of the shadow self, definitely. And that sense of when Sam gets big and we get small, sometimes when our shadow selves get so big, we feel so small. Yeah. I see both Tatiana saying, yeah, the ego's job is to keep us safe. And Brittany saying, yeah, that the critic has true intentions to help. not to be negative. We'll look at that in a little bit. Definitely that Emily's saying that a lot of what your critic says is rooted in larger issues that affect everyone. Yes, the critic picks up what it's hearing in our larger systems of white supremacy, sexism, homophobia. It tells us, sexism tells us how men should be and how women should be. And that those are the only two categories, right? Or patriarchy tells us that. And so we take in all those messages and then we take them into our own selves as a way to live and survive in this culture, as a way to get by and to fit into our early families, to fit into our school lives. And so we start telling ourselves those messages. It would be really inconvenient if every single time we needed to relearn what it is to be a good student, for example. So we start telling ourselves, like, you better work harder, you didn't get an A this time. All of that becomes kind of ingrained, almost like inner critic DNA, so that we can stay safe, so that we can stay in relationship with other people who might not, or who are kind of following those same systems often. So a lot of the work that we're doing as we shift our inner critics is also starting to shift those bigger systems. If we say, like, hey, I'm not going to follow the rules of patriarchy anymore. I'm not going to follow the rules of what it means to be a good woman or man. I'm going to create what I want and try and start shifting those systems up. So what we're going to do in just a moment is start to look at some of the critics. Now, usually I have everyone draw their inner critic and we share those. If you've done this with me in the past, you may have drawn your inner critic. If not, I invite you to draw yours after the session today. Or if you're feeling it right now, I'm going to share some other drawings of other people's, and you can take these couple minutes, these 5 minutes. If you want to just draw, you can draw yours. And what I always say is, if you want to draw your inner critic, usually when I say draw your critic, the first thing that comes up is people say, I can't draw. And that's the first little speech bubble that you write next to your critic. You write your critic and then you write draw. You can't draw. And you put it as a you, because the critic is not I. It's not, we end up thinking I can't draw, or I am bad, or my hair is too short. My hair is too long. I should have made soup. But really it's this voice saying you should have made soup. Your hair is too long. You can't draw. So by framing it as a you, we can start seeing it as something that's outside of ourselves. And I find that is a really helpful shift to make. So I'm going to share some pictures of other folks' critics who have shared them with me and given me permission to share them with you. And if you want to take this, it'll be about 5 minutes. If you want to just follow along and watch and read other people's critics, you're welcome to do that. If you want to draw your own, you're welcome to do that right now. So here are some kind of a gallery of critics. Here's Joe. Joe's saying to his human, no one will ever love you. You will always be alone. I don't know this one's name. And you'll start to notice some similarities. You don't think you can do this. You can't write. You're not as good as them. You're not strong. So we kind of are telling ourselves, you're too secretive. You're not strong. You're not fit to be CEO. When we start telling ourselves some of these same messages, and we'll kind of notice And as you read these, you might feel like, oh, wow, I'm not alone. Like, gosh, look, everyone's telling ourselves these things. And there might be some compassion. Often when I see them from other people, I feel a lot of compassion. Like, oh, don't think that about yourself. You're actually amazing. You're wonderful. But of course, when I look at my own and think about it myself, I'm like, yeah, you could do so much more. Yeah. You think too much. Why do you always cry so much? Too much. I think all of those messages to myself. So just notice kind of what comes up as you're looking at these. If compassion comes up, it's like, oh, like, what if I could turn that compassion for myself and think like, oh, sweetheart, look at what you're saying to yourself. Just look at this. I did this workshop with some fourth graders, and fourth graders also have inner critics. And these are some of the fourth graders' inner critics, inner meanies, we call them. Already starting to tell themselves, too short, I'm stupid. So the invitation, if you'd like to draw your critic after this, you're welcome to. I find it's really helpful to get them on paper. It's actually making what we're subject to it when it's in our heads. We can turn it into an object. We can make it object so that we can see it. And once you can see it, you can kind of externalize and know, oh, it's not me. It's not just this natural thing that I do for myself. It is this kind of entity, this part of me that I started having and telling to myself. And I run a lot of these workshops and we actually get to know the critic a lot more. So what we're going to do now is actually have about 10 minutes of writing time with yourself, if you'd like. And I'm going to kind of introduce some questions for the critic. So the first thing is, what is one thing that your critic does not want you to be? What is one thing your critic does not want you to be? You can put it in the chat, or you can just kind of journal. So you can do this kind of in chat and in your head, or journaling with a pen and paper if you'd like. Take a moment and just think, like, the critic says, like, maybe you're dumb, you're not strong. So the critic doesn't want me to be stupid. Or it tells me I'm stupid, rather. Yeah, it doesn't want you to be powerful. Critic doesn't want you to say what you think. Don't be outspoken. Don't be clear. Does it say don't be clear, or does it say you better be clear? If it says you better be clear, or you're not clear, it doesn't want you to be unclear. Right? So yeah, or it says you're not worthy. Doesn't want you to be irrelevant. Yeah. So this question might be a little worded funny. Yeah, it says you're not worthy about being happy. It doesn't want you to be sensitive, dumb, or anxious. Doesn't want you to be super emotional. Like, what does it tell you? Like, don't be weak. Don't be super emotional. Don't be dumb. Don't be sensitive. Don't be you're so anxious. Don't be so anxious. Don't get people upset with you. You better not get people upset with you. Don't be overly sensitive. Come on, you're too sensitive. You know, that kind of voice, right? You're not worthy. Don't take charge here. Don't take charge. So what is it telling you? And it's usually like, kind of, what's it telling you not to do? Or like to quit doing? Yeah, these are great. These are great. So imagine like, okay, it doesn't want you to be super emotional. What's at risk if you are like that? What's at risk if you're overly emotional or overly sensitive, whatever you put in the chat? What's at risk if you say something dumb? What's at risk if you're irrelevant or if you take charge or if you think you're worthy? What's at risk if you think you're worthy? What's at risk if you say what you think or you're powerful? Like, what bad thing might happen? You can just think to yourself, what bad thing might happen if I'm like that? You can put that in the chat too. What's at risk? Oh, so people might have a negative opinion of me, of you. I might seem weak and problematic. I might seem uneducated. I might not get anywhere in life. People might think I'm stupid or crazy or doing something dumb. I'll be disliked by everyone. And maybe we could even go a level deeper with these, like, what's at risk if I seem weak? What's at risk if I seem uneducated? Or what's at risk if people think I'm stupid? Or what's at risk if people don't like me? Yeah, like maybe my sense of safety is actually at risk, or maybe I'll make a fool of myself. For me, it's like maybe I'll be rejected. Maybe people like won't like me and they will just completely reject me. Yeah, and if they know my truth, oh boy, don't even get me started. If people know my truth, then like probably they'll really not want to be around me. They'll really reject me, right? So, and I won't have friendships. I'll seem like B word, yeah. All of these. Okay, so here's the next question. Why would your critic want to protect you from that risk? Why in the world would this part of you want to stop you from people not liking you? Why would this part want to stop you from people making a fool of yourself, from you making a fool of yourself, or stop you from risking your sense of safety? Yeah. So it's scared for you. It wants your survival. And why would this part of you want your survival or want people to like you? Like, why would this part of you want you to fit in and be accepted? Like, why does it care? Think about that. Like, why, if this part is so evil and so annoying, why would it care whether people like us or not? Why would it care to help us fit in and be accepted? My hunch there is that at some level, this part of us is caring for us. Yeah, it's evolutionary to be accepted. We are social creatures, so this part wants our survival. It wants us to kind of fit in. But like, why would it care if we fit in or not? If it's really so evil? My guess is it's possible that this part cares for us, and that's why it wants us to fit in. But maybe it even loves us and wants us to survive. So that's a possibility. And that might be a really sweet intention, but it's overactive. Yeah. It's like a little too much now. Because does it really actually protect us from that all the time? Do our critics really get us love and acceptance all the time? Do they really help us get accepted by others? Do they really help us avoid pain all the time, or have true friendships, or keep us from making fools of ourselves? Or do we kind of make fools of ourselves anyways sometimes? Do we fail sometimes anyways? are we disliked sometimes anyways? Right? No, well, of course we're disliked sometimes anyways. Of course people reject us sometimes anyways. And sometimes we think, oh, I better work harder, right? But no, it's not that we have to work harder and harder for this. It doesn't necessarily help. And what we need to do then is decouple the kind of relationship between, like, if I do this more, then people won't like me. Like, if I speak out, people won't like me. Well, people aren't going to like us all. Like, not everybody's going to like us anyways. So what if it's okay to have people not like us, or to whatever the critic is trying to protect us from? So whatever you sense that your critic might be protecting you from, that risk, people not liking you maybe, what if that's okay? When's the time when you've been that, when you've been outspoken, or when people have rejected you, or when people have disliked you, or when you've been alone and it's been okay? I bet there are times in your life where you've actually been that thing and survived it, and you were okay. And this doesn't work with everything, but just think, I'm going to kind of slow down for a minute and let you just think about, like, has there been a time where you've been whatever the critic doesn't want you to be? You've been outspoken. You haven't fit in. You've seemed like a bitch. Where, like, you made a fool of yourself. Or people thought you were stupid and it was okay. Think of a time where actually it was okay. Yeah. Yeah. And, like, we can't be smart all the time. We can't say the most brilliant thing all the time. What if it's okay to say something dumb? What if it's okay to have people think we're crazy? What if it's okay to say something silly, or to eat too much, or to be too loud sometimes? Sometimes the critic is telling us real things. Like, if I have diabetes and the critic is saying I'm eating too much sugar, that might be a really, really important and even life-saving thing. And living in our systems and societies, like living in a white supremacist society, the critic might tell me some things about how to fit in that I do want to listen to, that are going to be important. And so that's why we're not getting rid of the critic. But often it goes that extra mile and says, like, well, you'll never fit in. Like, well, actually, what if it's okay? Some things we're actually saying it might be okay to be that thing that the critic is saying it's not okay to be. And that often can provide a lot of freedom. And so this is all about discernment of, like, can I find some freedom by just saying, critic says, like, you're too tall? Okay, I'm too tall. Okay. Or your critic says you're too short? Okay, I'm too short. Or your critic says you're eating too much sugar? Great, that's something I want to listen to. So it's all about this discernment of when is the critic being an ally versus when is it kind of built on some older risks and some things that it's really afraid of that actually I don't need to be afraid of anymore. So these questions, I think, can really help, and you can take some more time, maybe take a screenshot of this. It can be helpful to really journal on some of these, and you can even ask the critic, kind of like, what do you not want me to be? What's at risk? Why do you want to protect me from that? And then check with yourself, like, is it working? And when is the time that it's actually been okay to be that? I'm actually running, I offer open free website like meetings and sessions where we dive in and ask these questions to ourselves much more deeply. And if there are Zoom meetings, so we can kind of see each other and be in community around some of these questions. There happens to be one tonight at 7:30 Eastern time after this. So I will share the link. And so if you want to spend some time with your critic, drawing it or writing these questions and really journaling with these and more, I invite you to join me at 7:30 tonight after this. And I will also share the link to many more of those sessions as well, if this is interesting and you want to go deeper. So this is an overview of kind of how I think we can overcome imposter syndrome through befriending the critic, first of all, externalizing it so that we can see it on the page rather than just have it in our heads. So step one is externalizing it, knowing it's not us. Step two is listening to it and understanding, like, what is it that it's saying and doesn't want me to be, rather than taking that in as I am that, just like looking at it. What do I actually, hear from it? What does it not want? And then looking at, like, there's two pieces, like, is that actually true? Do I want to listen to it and discern and say, like, okay, yeah, I should have gone left back there, or I am running late for my friends? Or is it actually something that it's not actually serving me? It thinks that there's a risk, that there might not actually be a risk. And I can just say, yeah, it's okay to be that. I'm not going to worry about being too tall or too short, or maybe I should have made soup. Who cares? And just kind of let it slide off my back. Okay. I find that that's really different than affirmations, where I'm trying to argue and say, no, I am really smart. I am really smart. Because sometimes then if I'm trying to prove how smart I am, I could try and prove that my whole life, and it's still so overwhelming and there's so much. But if I just say, actually, it's okay to be dumb sometimes. It's okay to sound stupid. And then I don't have to prove anything. There's some freedom there. So in my mind, affirmations can really help in saying, I am smart, I am kind, I am good. And like, it's okay to be stupid. It's okay to look ugly today. It's okay to feel bad or be bad. And kind of letting both of those be true about ourselves can give a little bit more ease. So with that, I want to pause and open up some space for Q&A. So if you have a question, please add it to the Q&A box at the bottom. And or if you just want to share, like, something resonated with you, you can share that in the chat box. So questions in the Q&A that you want to discuss, and then any resonances in the chat, and we'll take about the Q&A and discussion for 10 minutes, and then we'll do a kind of quick, like, what are you taking away from this? Questions can be idea questions about how I, beliefs and thoughts about the critic, or how I've kind of questions about this method, or something that you're working on in your life around the critic that you could use some support with.
Rosie, while folks are adding their questions in the Q&A, we received one earlier, and it's, where can I get this story of Sam?
Oh, great. Thanks for asking. I am working now on publishing it. So I am really, you can email me, first of all, and I'll send you a PDF of it. But also, I hope to be publishing it this year and getting it out there. Yeah. Thanks for that. Yeah, and also if you want to sign up, I'll share my website. And if you want to sign up on my site, I will announce when it is actually published and put there. So I see, how do you help someone else who has an overpowering critic without sounding preachy and being supportive? I love that. I think it's a really important and good question, because if we're preaching and we're like, no, you're actually okay, or like trying to tell them, pump them up, like, it can kind of backfire and just support their critics. So I find it's kind of like in the very beginning where I was sharing the difference between my resume story and my story. I think the best way to help people who have that kind of overpowering inner critic is to say, like, me too, and to just share a little bit of your own sort of like kind of open it up so that they're not alone. Let them share with you what they are truly feeling without telling them that, they're wrong about how they're feeling about themselves, but just making space and saying like, wow, I hear how you feel bad about yourself sometimes. That's normal. Like, yeah, we feel bad about ourselves sometimes. And then if there are ways that you can see that, like maybe it's part of a bigger systemic thing, you could offer that maybe with like a maybe, or like, what if this is actually, what if this came from somewhere that isn't you, or what if this critic isn't you? I find that like making almost an invitation into seeing something differently can help, rather than being preachy about something, but saying like, well, what if this is true? Or like, well, what about this? Or I wonder if it might help to see it this way. So there's that like really truly affirming what they're going through and saying it's okay and like giving space. And then it may be an invitation to see it in a different way. You could even invite them to draw their critic or to name it. Those can help. Yeah, thanks for that question. And I see in the chat, like, I think it's easier to individually let go and recognize it's okay if I feel sometimes. But when it comes to leadership, how to navigate the feeling that you're letting other people down, that your failure isn't just your own, but belongs to everyone, or God forbid, becomes associated with the group you represent. Yeah. A teacher of mine, Ron Heifetz, says that leadership is the art of disappointing people at a rate that they can stand. Disappointing people at a rate that they can stand. And so it includes a lot of letting people down. And I think there is a special art to letting people down and to saying just like, hey, I can't meet you. I can't give you what you want. I'm so sorry that I'm going to disappoint you right now. And you can let them know in advance that you're going to disappoint them, because if you're stepping into a leadership position, you definitely will disappoint some people. And I think so often we try to avoid the disappointment. Again, this is this piece of like, we're trying to avoid disappointing people. So we go to so many like work and we're, moving all around to try and avoid disappointing them, when actually there's some freedom of just saying, yeah, I'm going to disappoint people. Our team is going to disappoint people. And how do I then acknowledge their disappointment and really sit with them through the feelings of disappointment without necessarily needing to give them something that I can't give? And then I mean, there's a piece around when a failure becomes representative of the group. Like if I'm the only or one of the very few of a group, there is often this like extra burden of feeling like I'm representing the group that comes onto your shoulders. And that is again one of these systemic pieces that is so challenging and is so hard. And there is no way that you can be perfect. You just can't. You're going to disappoint people. And so what do you need to do for yourself to be okay disappointing people? And how do you then help hold them through the emotional experience of being disappointed? Which I think is about honoring and acknowledging. Yeah. I see other question about resources and tangibles. Curious to hear more about that. If you want to, Annette, do you want to come off mute and share a little bit more about about your question? Let me see if I can find you. Yes, there we go. Hi. I think you can unmute now. Oh, like principles to work with clients.
Oh,
yes.
you can hear me. Oh, okay.
Yes.
I didn't know you can hear me. So, actually, you just said something about being okay with disappointing people. And I have something on my wall that I made back in April of this past year. And it said, today I'm okay with disappointing others. And that was a part of my self journey. But in regards to the reproducibles, just working with children. So what you gave me the visual you gave me with with Sam was pretty good. I'm wondering if there are any other resources online out there that's similar to what you were able to offer in your book, which is awesome. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yes, there are a number of great resources out there, books on internal family systems, therapy that this is based off of. There are some kind of self-coaching approaches. So over the next couple of weeks, I'm kind of developing a resource bank and library, and I can share some of those. I also offer worksheets, so you can download some worksheets from my site, and I'll share my site in just a second.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. So in the chat is my website, which is lovethatmess.com. And you can find a contact form there. You can sign up for my mailing list, which is pretty limited, but I send out things about 4 times a year. And then I will send out the book announcement when it comes. And there's the Zoom for 7:30 tonight. So copy that if you'd like to join. It's free. And yeah, let's see other questions before we close. We have about 2 more minutes for any last lingering questions. Great. So I'm going to invite everyone now to put in the chat one thing that you're taking away from our session today. What is one maybe insight or line that has stuck with you, or something you learned about your critic tonight? What's one thing that you're carrying with you? Please put it in the chat. Appreciate knowing that you're not alone. You're taking with you Sam. I love it. Please take him with you. I survived and I continue to survive. Externalize your critic. It is not you. Sometimes it's okay to be that thing that your critic tells you not to be. These are great. Hey, I don't have to listen to every little criticism in my head. No, you certainly don't, Angela. You certainly don't. You get to choose which ones you listen to and which ones you don't. Yeah. Also got more to think about. Yeah, I'm sensitive and that's okay. You just care a lot. That's really true. And I bet sensitivity in some ways maybe wasn't okay when you were little, and now actually is a huge gift that you can bring to others. Alexa. Yeah, Cece's saying you don't have to try to get rid of the inner critic. No, and we don't want to. That critic actually tells us really important information about how to survive. Really important. And sometimes it's like way on overdrive, usually. It's okay to have big feelings. Love the question, when is a time when you've been your critic's worst fear and you were okay? Spaces I thought were bad or lonely actually can serve you. Yeah. You can recognize those feelings and thoughts for what or who they are. Yeah. So again, if you're interested in digging deeper, in exploring where the critic got its job, when it first came on board in your inner team, and why, and getting to know it a little bit more, tonight in about a half an hour, you can join me and we'll dive in even more to that. And otherwise, you can sign up for ongoing workshops or just take forward, even if you don't continue with me, just take forward just all of the blessing around and sense of we can change this imposter syndrome thing. We can change this self-doubt situation, and we can help make a much more loving and much more kind and much more connected space where it's okay to be all those things sometimes in our lives. Because of course, everybody is all those things sometimes. So with that, thank you all so, so much. And really, really grateful to you. Over to you, Sydney.
Hey, y'all. Thank you so much for being with us here tonight. Like I said, this is webinar 1 of our 6-part webinar series designed for folks in the recovery space, students doing the work, and staff if they're interested in attending as well. So I plopped in the chat a survey so you can tell us a little bit about your experience tonight with us. SAFE Project's website so you can learn more about SAFE and the ways that we can help you. And then again, a reminder to check out our future events on the webinar. With that, thank you so much, Rosi. Every time we hear you speak, I continue to get more and more, which as a person in recovery is just so incredibly powerful to learn more about my inner critic and imposter syndrome. And I'm sure, like I said, the feedback we received after the last time we heard from you was so incredibly powerful. So we appreciate you. Thanks y'all so much for being here tonight. I look forward to seeing you soon, and reach out to Rosi and myself if you have questions, comments, and concerns, because we really are here with you for you. So with that, have a great night.
Good night, everyone.